Nevitt, Editor-in-Chief of Corporate Counsel at ALM, and I'm excited to be with you here today as part of our Legal Operations in a Time of Disruption series. So today we're going to discuss emerging technology and how to effectively tune out the noise to find out what works for your department in this time of crisis. This event today is sponsored by iManage as in partnership with Corporate Counsel. Before we begin and I introduce our amazing speaker, I would like to quickly go over some basic housekeeping items about the webcast console. So this event is completely interactive and incorporates social media tools. So you can tweet and directly post information to your Facebook and LinkedIn pages right from the console. Just scroll down along the bottom of the screen and click on the social networking widget of your choice. And if you have any questions for the speaker during our presentation, please enter it in the Q&A box down below on the console. I'll try to get to your question during the presentation. However, if we don't get to your question, you may receive an email response after the event. So now I'd like to introduce John Albright, my guest here with us today. John is the Chief Legal and Compliance Officer of Hubbard International, the world's fifth largest insurance and employee benefits brokerage with more than 12,000 employees, offering a broad array of property and casualty, employee benefits, risk management, and investment advisory products and services. John also oversees Hubb's enterprise risk management program and all real estate assets, which is over 500 commercial leases. Prior to joining Hubb, John served as General Counsel for Information Resources, a billion-dollar data technology and market research company with operations in 15 countries, and Accenture HR Services, a global HR outsourcing concern. John started his legal career as a patent and trademark litigator with Alston & Bird in Atlanta, and subsequently served as IT counsel and then division counsel for VeriSign, a large and pioneering internet and technology services company. So he's very well versed in legal tech. But last but certainly not least, he's also a thought leadership contributor to Corporate Counsel. So welcome, John. We're so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. And good morning and afternoon to everyone.
And we're short on time, so I want to get right into things, and we have a lot to discuss on this topic. So let's start off with the fact that it was already a very difficult task for legal departments to know what tech they needed, right? And now there are these added factors due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So where do they start? How can legal ops professionals help the legal department recognize where there are possible opportunities for efficiencies? And maybe more importantly, how can they get them to listen?
So before I jump right into the answer, I wanted to say when Heather and I started planning for this, we honestly did go into it with the design of presenting a non-pandemic webinar, because there certainly have been no shortage of those. But it's really hard to ignore the impact this crisis has already had on our profession and will continue to have. So, as I searched for a silver lining on how we tie that in a potentially constructive way, I wanted to start out with two quotes from Chicago community leaders, since I've now been a Chicagoan for more than a decade now. Former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and he was also Obama's chief of staff during his first term, bastardized the concept from Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals when he stated, "You never let a serious crisis go to waste." And to correctly quote Alinsky, tactics mean doing what you can with what you have. This may be the first and last legal operations webinar where Alinsky's most famous work is referenced, but I thought those two quotes were certainly relevant to the surreal world we're kind of living in. So if we take a look back to get to the question, to the 2008 Great Recession, that was a similar crisis of scale and also opportunity, going back to Rahm Emanuel's point. And while legal operations has largely evolved into existence over that time, most legal departments still failed to invest for the next crisis. And, we certainly didn't contemplate a pandemic, but to be fair, nobody did. So, we didn't totally learn from that, if at all, in the sense of preparing for what we're living through now. And I think one of the largest opportunities that was missed in 2008 is very few companies after that invested in technology that would truly enable them to understand what was in their documents, what was in their contracts. The focus then likely would have been on termination rights, bankruptcy and liquidation provisions, those types of things. The focus now, all of those things, and force majeure clauses. So who would have thought we would ever live to see a mass trigger of force majeure clauses? Those are things you just argue about when you're negotiating contracts. I think knowledge and document management is the short answer as to where I would start.
And how has working from home impacted all of this with knowledge management and that sort of thing? What about when people start transitioning back into the office? How will that view of what you need change significantly?
So, and that is working from home, obviously, has transformed the way many of us, if not most of us, work. And let's just look at the impact Zoom has had, and Zoom-like video conferencing. I mean, how many of us would have predicted that we'd be holding Zoom trials 2 to 3 months ago? I think a similar question is how many people had heard of Zoom 2 or 3 months ago? But in April, Florida held a bench trial over voting rights on Zoom, and the general public was able to listen in by phone. Just this week, a county in Texas is trying a jury trial on Zoom, but they already ran into issues when a prospective juror walked off screen to take a phone call during the jury selection process. So, I mean, look, there's obviously a lot to reconcile around remote proceedings in the Constitution and all of these other complexities around that. But so far, 16 states and Puerto Rico have ordered virtual proceedings, and more are likely to come, especially as these lockdowns at some level continue in some of the hardest hit areas of the country. So that begs the question: if one of the stodgiest and most conservative industries on the planet is doing trials on Zoom, what else can we do as in-house practitioners on Zoom? I mean, contract negotiations, page flips, virtually anything can be done on Zoom. And there was some resistance to that, certainly on my internal clients, and I'm sure many of yours. Is it depersonalized? Is there a stigma with not showing up? The pandemic has changed all of that, and it's important as states and our cities start to reopen. Social distancing is still going to be with us for a while, probably a number of months to come, and we can expect this to impact, I think, both positively and to a lesser degree negatively, how remote relationships impact our dealings. I mean, take law firms, for example. They're probably going to feel the relationships we have with our law firms are probably going to feel a little more institutionalized and defined by policy and procedure rather than personalities and relationships, because we may have a layer of technology there. But, it definitely has opened up opportunities for working from home. Now, if you look at legal services, we were already heading there to a degree. ALSPs, alternative legal service providers, have taken work offshore. Remote contract lawyers have a greater presence. They kind of gave rise out of the Great Recession when a number of them were available to work contract work. And then there's the millennialization of law firm culture, and that has permeated into in-house department cultures as well. I mean, millennials have long believed that our legacy way of doing business was fundamentally broken. They're quicker to adopt new technology and go paperless. But remote working has forced the rest of us to do that at varying levels. So, I think technology is a critical piece of allowing us to work from home thus far and pushing us more quickly into that moving forward. If we can go to slide 5.
Yeah, I think, legal departments are slow to change in general. The legal field is slow to change in general, but this has thrown them into the innovation that has probably been needed for a long time.
Absolutely. So I am not seeing slide 5 on my live view. It says Adobe Flash Player is blocked, but Heather, are you able to see it?
I am.
Okay, good.
Like John had said, it wouldn't be a technology webinar without a little hiccups in technology, right?
Absolutely. So if you part of the challenge we have had as an industry is regulations and tradition have slowed the adoption of technology. And what we now have, and we were seeing a little of this before. The state of California was offering some latitude with technology and remote working, and other states were looking at following it, really to provide broader access to legal services. Now we've been forced to do that with smaller things like e-signature, virtual notary, but a lot of the, I won't call them excuses, but sort of barriers to change had been on the regulatory framework of the legal practice in and of itself. Now that courts are holding Zoom trials, I think we can say a lot of those barriers have been removed, and I think there will be a lot of, appetite to continue a lot of these measures moving forward. Turning to slide 6, and I'll try to drive from my end, see if that works. This just highlights, some of the innovations, and all of this was pre-pandemic. But it also is further evidence that regulators were starting to relax some of the restrictions around how we practice law. And that's a big part of adopting technology. And if you look at where the industry's head was, going to slide 9. A full 70% of lawyers in 2019 said that they were confident in trying new technology. The challenge is if you look at what's driving a lot of our new technology, it's artificial intelligence, right? If you go to that question, 70% of them said they had no current plans or no knowledge of any plans to use artificial intelligence. So, new technology could have been the latest iPhone, but we still have, even going to a presentation I saw several days ago, 5 to 10% adoption of artificial intelligence in in-house legal departments. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity to take what we are doing now and further build upon it to bring some of these more cutting-edge tools and technology infrastructure into the day-to-day lives of in-house attorneys.
Yeah, because I think one of the issues is if you ask someone in-house to say, do you want help in efficiencies and automation through tech? And they're like, yes, we want that. But the more important question is, what are your exact needs, right? What is the tech need you need to solve a certain problem, not just an overarching, we would love efficiency. So then you have to look at your ROI, right, and start building out your business case for this new technology. Can you go into a little more about the nuts and bolts of how that process works and how the legal operations folks can help in that process?
Sure, and just to offer some further evidence as to how this pandemic has kind of turned everything a little bit on its head. We've been talking about Zoom a lot. For those of you who thought Zoom should be the most valuable stock on the planet right now, you may be surprised to learn they're currently being sued by their shareholders for overstating security claims.
That's right.
My knee jerk when this happened is I was embracing technology more broadly than I had 2 months ago, was that it was going to be a boon for legal tech and further delay the inevitable bursting of the legal tech bubble that we've been hearing about for some time now. But many experts believe COVID-19 may have actually already burst the bubble. Things are rarely as they seem in this crisis. We are definitely in a recession. Depending on who you read or what time of day it is, it's either going to be a V recovery, a U recovery, or the Wall Street Journal, I think they may have just made it up last week, came up with a Nike swoosh recovery, which is a slower version of a U recovery. So startup and VC funding are likely to dry up to a degree. Legal budgets are likely to be under pressure as companies are under pressure. due more to the recession, obviously, than the pandemic, which obviously was a direct trigger of the recession. So that puts, as legal operations professionals, as we're looking at these platforms and evaluating them, it puts added pressure on you to make sure you're selecting a vendor that's going to be there for the long haul. And you're also working with technology budgets that are either diverted or reduced. So how are you going to spend that money? And I started out life as an engineer before I went to law school, so I've always been a bit of a tech geek of sorts. And I study and read and go to these trade shows on all of legal tech, and there's so much out there. And arguably one of the coolest tech toys I've seen prior or future is this application that takes a PDF of a complaint, you drop it into the app, and in 45 seconds it generates your answer, affirmative defenses, in your first round of discovery. I saw that demoed at a conference, fell in love with it, immediately had them come out to Chicago to meet with my head of litigation and claims, and it worked as promised. But we quickly realized we have a fair number of claims. We're an insurance broker, so if there's a denial of coverage, we obviously are often sued, as is the insurance carrier. But we quickly discovered that our litigation is spread across 40 plus states. It has an equal number of law firms defending those. And those law firms were doing an efficient job of managing that caseload. I had found the perfect solution, but I didn't really have a problem it was solving for. So, if you can leave this afternoon with anything, and you're looking to prioritize and build a business case for investment in new technology, you have to start with a business problem that you're looking to solve for. Right. And that'll be the foundation of everything you're building your business case on, because your CEO is looking to solve business problems, not legal operations problems. So to give you a real quick example, and I want to be sensitive to time here, when Hubbard adopted our first AI and analytics-powered document management platform, we did it to track and hold 550 of our commercial leases. And the business problem: rent is our second largest expense behind payroll. Leases we had signed at the depth of the Great Recession were expiring, and our rent was going up. It was going up a lot. So we had occupancy-related expenses that were inconsistently coded in Oracle, triple net leases you pay taxes on. So those may have been coded as taxes. Those are actually rent, and they should be qualified as rent. And we had offices that weren't efficient. They had a lot of square footage for employees. So this tool gave us a complete view into the problem that we were solving for, which is how do we get more efficient? And it allowed us to drive significantly greater efficiencies into the field, and it solved for a business problem. So that's just kind of a high-level example of how you should be looking at these and approaching these.
Okay, so I have a practical question for you. So just say you find the right tech solution. Everyone's on board and it's been implemented. And as we said, the legal industry is not adaptable or flexible sometimes. But so we know there can be resistance in the application of new tools. Do you have any tips on how everyone in the department can get on board and actually embrace the tech? And how do you incorporate that change, management into this? What role could legal ops have in those staffing solutions? And what are some of the hurdles integrating it maybe with existing platforms and that sort of thing?
So I have another quote for you from Peter Drucker, probably the opposite of Saul Alinsky in the radical scale. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I'm sure a number of you that are listening in today are living that. And change management, in my view, and I've seen this not only in the legal context, but in prior lives when I was working for a very large business process outsourcing firm where they would sign these billion-dollar outsourcing deals. Change management is where technology projects live or die. I don't think there's any uncertainty around that. And there was a recent survey by the ACC of legal ops managers, and 63% of them said their job is primarily change management. But of that same group of surveyed legal ops managers, and I know this is probably not going to be surprising to most of you, they also said law departments aren't good at it. of 15 measured categories in this survey, it ranked second to last behind metrics and analytics and above innovation management. So, the survey kind of confirmed what we probably all already knew, is that we struggle with change management. And, we routinely fall short in implementing standardized processes for managing the change, project management, a huge gap, and communications and feedback, which is critical to any change. And, we've all been living through that over the last 2 months. One of the keys to this pandemic response are communications. And I've been over communicating to my team. And as a part of our executive management team, our CEO and others have been over communicating to our 13,000 employees, because not only are we all remote, but we're hearing a lot of things on the news, and understanding how that's going to impact your day to day, I think is critical. So the slide that I just put up there, I'm not going to go through it in the interest of time, but there are obviously a great deal of resistance to change in our industry for the reasons I stated earlier, but you have to get alignment of the stakeholders. And it's important to understand on most any project, you're probably going to have cross-functional stakeholders like finance, HR, external counsel, and your third-party vendor is probably going to be involved in that mix as well. So are all of those aligned? And then just quickly, the last point, are internal skills gaps. I mean, the lawyer of even 5 to 10 years ago is not the lawyer that a lot of in-house departments are ideally looking for today. I'm sure a number of you have heard of the term the T lawyer. And when I was growing up as a lawyer, that was a lawyer that was broadly proficient in a number of topics and deeply proficient in one or two. The shaft of the T is still the same, but the cross of the T has totally evolved. And if you look at that slide, you have project management, you have technology, there's other aspects of it that are critical to the success of any of these projects and initiatives, and obviously critical to change management.
And knowledge management fits in there too. With the current pandemic, that has become a challenging aspect, where you used to be able to walk down and ask someone a question, walk down the hall and they're not there, and how people have become more siloed in this environment again. So I think that's a challenging aspect to it as well. So, oh my gosh, John,
absolutely,
we are running out of time. So I just want to end on this slide. It's John Glenn's quote. I thought it would nice to end our part with his quote in honor of his lovely wife Annie, who passed away this week. And also, I'm from Ohio, so I particularly love John Glenn. So, but his quote is, "I felt exactly how you would feel if you were getting ready to launch and knew you were sitting on $2 million of parts, all built by the lowest builder on a government contract." So I think that kind of sums up, the feeling of integrating tech into a legal department. It can be overwhelming and challenging, right?
Absolutely. And even more so in current times, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just complicated matters further. So, John, I really want to thank you for being with us today. We could go on and talk about this subject for another hour, but you're always so fun to talk to, and your time is so valuable, and I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So now I want to turn it over to Dean Leon, the Chief Customer Success Officer, to talk more about companies that are seeing returns from embracing AI and other technology. So passing it over to you, Dean.
Thank you, Heather. So I'd like to share with you a couple of stories, one about a bank and one about a telecommunications company, in terms of how they're facing business challenges and embracing our technology to solve their problems. But first, let me just give you a quick overview of iManage. Many of you know us for our law firm expertise, with over 70% market share amongst the AmLaw 200 firms. But did you also know that iManage is the #1 specific software used by professionals in DMS, matter management, and accounting systems? We have over 1 million users spanning multiple industries that use iManage, which includes 1,200 corporate customers across legal departments and enterprise, including 21% of the Fortune 100. Our product suite align around three distinct pillars. Again, many of you know us for our document management and email management, but we also have artificial intelligence that allows you to mine the information within your systems, and a security, risk, and governance portfolio that allows you to securely work remotely and utilize AI while under these times of being remote. And all this is integrated together, whether you're on-prem or in the cloud, with all these platforms being able to integrate directly in with your corporate specific applications. Jumping to the first story, our document management system is popular within corporate law departments, but the example here is a global financial services bank uses this for their investment bankers. What they needed to do was to be able to move documents off of an unsecured network drive into a secure and audited repository, while at the same time continue to use a program called FactSet, which had an Excel add-on that creates document links and needed to be retained across the organization. By implementing iManage Drive, which is a component of the document management system, the investment bankers were able to have their workflow uninterrupted because they still had access to what they perceived was a network drive. But again, it was connected directly into the document management system, where it was secure and audited. And now the entire corpus of investment bankers utilize that technology solely, and they have since eliminated network drives within their organization for this purpose. An example is British Telecom. They had a challenge in terms of a huge corpus of contracts where they had to manually review them, to identify clauses so that they can understand what obligations triggered potential revenue opportunities for them. The challenge for them was, with these routine cognitive tasks, they had a fleet of people reviewing these documents, which created some inconsistencies in review and some errors throughout in terms of being able to find clauses and differences in those clauses. By using the Raven artificial intelligence engine, they were able to gain the benefits of being able to find leakages in the terms of tens of millions of pounds per year, increasing their top line by over 2%, while at the same time having more efficient and consistent review of the documents, while at the same time reducing resources, saving on the bottom line as well. This is all baked in so that there was minimal friction in terms of being able to access this information securely. Now, as John mentioned earlier, it's more than just a product. It's important to have good change management and user adoption there, and this is where we excel. Not only do we have a robust product suite throughout the entire life cycle out there, but we proactively engage with our customers, not only during the implementation phase, but really focus on change management and user adoption to make sure that people are gaining the ongoing benefits of the feature and functionality of the product now, while at the same time being able to leverage the benefits as new functionality is released both on premises in the cloud. We call this the adoption continuum. So to summarize out, with 70% market share amongst the AmLaw 200, our corporate customers have the ability to utilize the same systems as their law firms, but tailored to the unique benefits of your company, whether it be document management systems, artificial intelligence, risk management, security, to be able to work remotely and meeting the needs of your particular workflow. This allows iManage to be at the center of business workflow, which helps drive your organization's efficiency, productivity, and revenue generation. Thank you, Heather. Back over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Dean. And thank you, iManage, for sponsoring this event, and for John helping us work through this topic. And thank you for all attending today. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you on another webinar next time. Thanks again.